Morning, everyone. In this video, part 5, we're going to continue talking about tournament prep. So I did just go to my local top 8. So we have a circuit all year, and then we had a top 8 where you win like the belt. And I took Midnight Suns. I took the list in front of you, slightly different from the one I was talking about before. Big reason was I knew what some of the people were probably taking, and so like I put in Beta Ray Bill instead of A Bomb because of the I changed some other stuff too. Um, but the reason was okay. I said there's probably going to be some Asgard players there. There's only one, um, and then there's probably going to be some more attrition-y players. In the end, it was two Midnight Suns, which were kind of similar, an Asgard Defenders, and Inhumans, Foes, Brotherhood, and Crims, right? So I was like, okay, they're on the fightier side, and I know a lot of them take like some of the bigger boys, and to be completely honest with you, um, I felt I could outplay people easier on more scenario based stuff than just if everything was in the middle like demons and intrusions and stuff. And so I said I'm gonna go a little bit faster on my crises. I took Sparks, and you see what I take here. I took Fist kind of for Asgard just because I thought it'd be annoying. I took Paranoia because I like my 16s. Point being is I took these as a risk, and it worked out. I ended up winning every game. I beat Asgard. The first game was 19 Fisk Virus. The Fist didn't really matter that much. I mean, it did, but it didn't. I went crazy and fucking killed Loki and Thor by throwing them into each other a bunch. And I mean, I had Prio, Red Skull 2 shot some people. I mean, there's some cool stuff. Well, I'm not going to go into the game. So one thing I will say is it's always interesting to read battle reports, but I like to talk about what I took away from the games, because when I try to type up a battle report or talk about it too much, like unless you can see it happening, there's not much, like the little details you'll miss, and sure there can be some cool moments here or there, but for the most part, like what you take away from the battle reports and like the commentary I'll bring to this conversation might be more important than like, oh, I moved here and rolled these dice. The point is I won every game and I learned some stuff. And I think the big thing is I played 19 where so I didn't play the dog, but it just didn't come up. I played Immortal Hulk, Blade, Mummy, Red Skull 2. That one felt very nice. I like that 19 a lot. Um, I played 217 games on Riots and Infinity, and I played Red Skull 2, Blade, Werewolf by Night, Mummy, and I did not like that much. It worked. I won both games, but it didn't feel great. It wasn't like if you come here and you look at your teams, and maybe I talked about this in my last video. I think I talked about teams a bit. Like it just doesn't feel that good. This team did not feel that good to me. Um, and I think part of it is Werewolf by Night. Like I don't think he was a bad model. Like he did some good stuff. He had some moments. If he didn't get trashed a couple times by getting killed, he could have done even better. I mean, okay, the last game, he actually did very well. He did get KO'd, but like he dazed Wong, and then he did his scream at a bunch of people and put like root and slow on Namor, and almost killed Wong again. Like he did stuff. Um, Two things with him. I think one thing with this roster is it doesn't have enough throws to make him feel good. Like he's the only real throw, other than Red Skull 2 Spender, that you rarely use. So like it's very easy. Okay, you're not going to pounce turn 1 most likely. Maybe you pounce turn 2, and if it's really important, they brace it, and then by the time it's turn 3, like okay, you get 1 pounce off. And if you don't even and if you can't even pounce into a good target, then like it just doesn't feel like the pressure of the pounce is there because you don't have any throws to go with it. It also has no terrain throws, period, which like even Lockjaw throwing a size 3 like is useful. Even Voodoo having it on his Spender, like it just felt really weird like playing on it. And also two of the maps I played on. The map I played on with this roster that felt weird had two giant trains that were size 4, and neither of us could throw them. And he had like Electro that could like go through, do his little teleport on him. And I wish I could have got rid of him. So like that was probably my mistake, not taking maybe the list below it and saying, all right, I want some terrain throws. The point being is I didn't really love the 17, and so that becomes a problem when you have 17s in your roster. Now I took an additional 17 because I took Riots. along with Infinity Formula, and I won Prio every time, so I never got to pick points, and my opponents picked the 17. All right, it just so happens. Like I played the 17 like once before that, so it's not like it has come up super often. Because even on the other side, right, 17 is alien ship, uh, spiders, and cubes, and I think if those rosters were out, like those 17s are still like an issue, but like I think werewolf having the healing, or taking the list below it with Immortal Hulk Mummy feels a little bit maybe better or different, or just being, yeah. I don't want to over criticize it. I just didn't love the 17, and I'm thinking about, so my takeaways from the tournament are thinking about 17 setups, and is this one good enough? Is the one below it good enough? Is there a different setup I should be thinking about? Do I need to change my roster to account for it? I mean, I think there's a very real conversation, and we can talk about it right now. I guess I can just. This is my son's list before that, but back to editing. Sorry, it was Frank. So like, I don't love Frankenstein, but I do wonder, and this is you pose yourself questions, right? Like I've talked about this before. When I look at my roster and I go after an event, I think of things that I learned, and then questions I have, and then you got to think about the answer. So a question I might have would be, do I think that something like Blade, Voodoo, Frank, Red Skull 2 is better? All right, so I'll give you this commentary. I think this roster is really good. I think this roster is not as good. Like, I think the one threat between Mummy and Voodoo almost, I don't want to say isn't worth it to like where he's not a 5 threat versus Voodoo's 4 threat, but I think Voodoo is so much better. Like, Voodoo's on the top end of the 4s, and Werewolf by Night is like closer to the bottom end of the 5. Bottom end, air quotes. It's not like Doctor Strange original one. It's just different, right? So the point being, like, I'd rather play 16 than 17, because I think from a opponent's perspective too, they're getting the threat value, the value you're getting going from Voodoo from Werewolf by Night, I think is not as big as what other people might get. And because he has a steal, like, I just think he lines up so well on the stuff. If it's on a, just everything he does is so uniquely different that I like 16 a lot more. And you get this kind of sweet ass one too. And so, one, I learned I like 16 more. Two, I said, okay, well, I think, if you were to take this roster and say this roster is really good, who changes the roster the least, bumping them up? I think Voodoo to Werewolf drastically changes the roster, like how it plays. Especially if you think about it, like the 16 to 17 is some of the scenario ones, like the spider infected or the cubes, like I just said. And you almost be like, oh, if it's cubes, like Voodoo feels like he'd be a lot better there than Werewolf by Night. And so Mummy, of course, Mummy's a great model, and he was amazing for me. But you could say, okay, upgrading Mummy to, let's say, Frank is the only other option. Is that really, like, change a lot? Do you feel like you're really losing out doing that? And so that's a question I have, generally speaking. And so that does make me look at Frank and be like, hey, could Frank be in here and be the answer, quote unquote, at 17? And yeah, he's not the answer I want, but, is he a solid one? And let's just look at him real quick, just see what we think. So he's 7, oh, wrong one. He's 7'7", right? So he's 7'7", size 3, medium move, medium base. I mean, he's very similar to Werewolf. Instead of 4'4", he's 4'3". So he has the same kind of movement ability stuff. Of course, Werewolf has the place on his thing, the clap back. Frank has charge. Frank has power issues, right? Frank is a really good card that has power issues. I do really like that he can get rid of size 4s. He can heal, which is not the same as it's not the same as healing factor because it's not free, and he likes his power. But he's still annoying. It also gives you a little bit of advantage of, like, you do have to wait to get much. Anyway, I do like him from, like, other than his power stuff. And you say, okay, if you're playing 17, Like, you can make the claim you're probably on cubes or you're probably on infinity, just because if you don't take extremist yourself, you can always pick your secure extract value or your extract crisis value. That, okay, he's probably going to have a little bit more power than you think, and maybe that's fine with you. Like, you're like, okay, I'm cool. I'm going to have the power I need. I get Voodoo, who does his cool stuff. Maybe Frank versus Werewolf is actually very close, like if you compare them two, and then you're getting Voodoo for Mummy. So, you're thinking about the combo. You're thinking, okay, I want Voodoo and Frank is better than Werewolf and Mummy. That's a claim I'm making, and that is like the only reason I want to play Frank or consider Frank. I don't know if that's the answer, but that's just something I'm thinking about right now. I just want to mention that. The other thing is, so I still think we're down to these three extracts, though I see Paranoia. It's slightly, like, it's that color for a reason, and it's because I really like 16 Threat. It's a little fast, but that might be okay. Like, it's not that bad to be fast. Like, is the meta fast enough that it's a problem? I don't know. Like, do you get burned on that verse, like, and I don't know. It's so here's my argument for Paranoia. Right? Let's just, if I had to make an argument for it, 16 Threat, in my opinion, with these two rosters, is very good. I really believe these are two very good rosters. In my heart of hearts, I feel like they're very strong. And I think the Mummy, I think the Blade Immortal Hulk Red Skull 2-1 can compete with fighty ones, and depending on the secure that goes with it. And I think that the one below it can deal with people who do a more, it might be kind of annoying if you get like Scoundrels. I don't even know if you get Scoundrels, it would actually be bad. The point being is there's 4 on the midline, and you have Voodoo, Blade, Red Skull. Like, you can really affect the midline and go get them. Like, Mummy's fine grabbing one. Red Skull 2 can grab one either safely or just pick it up and not take the damage because the Grunts can do it. The Grunts can set up stuff where, like, it can protect 2 people from picking it up. You can threaten, like, Voodoo's very good at, like, threatening people who pick them up. Like, Blade, you're fine with picking one up early because he can probably heal with his, with the bleed thing. Mummy can heal with a soul. Like, sure, if you're against 6 wide webs, maybe it gets annoying. I don't even know, though, because you have Voodoo, who's really good at possessing, like, 2 threats, and you have a team that's really good at killing 2 threats, and you're always going to have priority, and you still have the Grunts to, like, step on a secure and maybe not get too far behind. I really believe, like, maybe we could do Paranoia. Because, yeah, I really feel like either one of these teams could potentially do Paranoia. Because the old, like, yeah, I'm just, that's all I'm saying. I feel like we could do it. Or you say, okay, I'm going to take, because the other one I want to drop is, so Paranoia is like that one, like, is 16 good enough? Maybe I'll test it. I'd probably still take Virus and Centers because I really like 19. Like, if you take Paranoia instead of Hammers and Scrolls, right? Because Scrolls is, we have some 20s, but let's just not worry about that. Like, you can basically guarantee yourself, you're saying, I can always play, like, a scenario-based Red Skull 2 setup, or a iHawk-based attrition setup with Red Skull 2, right? 16 or 19 is basically just saying, all right, 19 add in Lockjaw, 16 take away Lockjaw, and then you have, from this one, from both of them, right? This wouldn't be Red Skull, this would be Mummy. So either add Mummy to this one, or add Lockjaw to this one. And that's how you go between 19 and 16, depending on what you need. And they both can do it. Like, you're centered around, like, 6 models, I think. Right? Blade, Voodoo, Mummy, Red Skull, Immortal Hulk, Lockjaw. You're basically basing your strategy of an extracts around 6 models. Great. From the secure side, I think, Bots and I have been talking, and I thought this before. I have said this, maybe not here, but maybe I said in the last video, but I have said to him, I am not sold on intrusions. In fact, I think we should drop it. So here's my reasoning. I think, and I felt this ways with other factions before, I think we're not the best on it. I don't think we're bad on it. I think it inherently hurts our mobility advantage, which I think is very true. Like, right, we have bump, we have ways to get to people, and because of the way intrusions are set up, you can just teleport and get really close to people. And so you're basically giving away some of your advantage because of that. Like, okay, iHawk can just like iHawk on intrusions with bump with not bump is almost the same thing because you can just go between intrusions and hit most of the board. Okay, you can threaten maybe a little more with bump, you always could. But like you're not getting that advantage that you might before. Also, I think with all the safe grabs we have and all the shenanigans there, I've said this. Okay, you pick your secures. I'll give you an example. You get virus and intrusions, and you're like, okay, cool. I have double safe grab. If it's anything else, I could safe grab two of them because Lockjaw and Red Skull can set up safe grabs for both, and I can get away to a back secure and force the opponent to like do something, right? Whereas on intrusions, you're basically giving up like the middle, and like your opponent's just gonna walk up there and then say, all right, I have one extract, you have two, but I'm sitting on all the intrusions, and now you have to come back and fight me. It's like, what's the point of doing the safe grab at that point? So I always felt like weird there. I think like other teams are just better on it. Do I think we can compete? Sure, we can compete. That's the part of building a good roster is being able to compete. I'm very passionate about this today. I'm jacked up on Midnight Suns and coffee and victory. And so because I don't like that it doesn't let us back up. Like if intrusion was any other threat value, I feel like I'd be like, absolutely not. The fact that it's 19, I think has given me a false sense of like, it's good for us. And I think it forces people, I think it just like extracts that force you to the middle are great for us because we have inherent safe grabs and punishes for it. Whereas intrusions, like the secures don't help that much. Now, of course, I do like D shapes, and I do think that we are good on D shapes, and the rotation stuff and the safe grabs are better there. Just because you can't teleport between them, like you can actually put space between you and the enemy, and not get like super screwed by it. Like you're not going to just teleport, roll a die, and teleport next to you and kill you. So I'm really anti invasion right now, or intrusions. I really have enjoyed Infinity Formula. Playing it at 17 has actually been... I've only played at 17 a couple times. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I still think I'm going to keep it in. I might even try Frank to see if he feels good on it. Because I know Voodoo's good on it. Blade's fine. Red Skull 2's good on it. I think one thing I learned, and maybe it's for a different video, but I feel like where you put Red Skull 2 grunts is really important. And I feel like whenever I put the grunts near Red Skull 2, I don't like it as much. I think from like a rotational standpoint, like if you can force, like if Red Skull 2 safe grabs something, you're kind of saying in a way, depending on what the rest of the board is doing, you're kind of saying in a way, this is where the fight's going to be if you're going to beat me, because I'm going to get an extract advantage. Let's say it's 2-1, and he's going to hold one of them. If you put the grunts on the same side, like I don't know. I felt like there was some games, or one game where I put them on the opposite side and they went and held a side D, and I'm like, the extract's over here, man. You either got to come over here, or or you're gonna lose. But the grunts were always there, and like nothing was close enough to where it wouldn't take like an action or two to go kill them, and it would slow it down way too much. And of course they'd respawn on the other side, and I could rotate. On a B shape, I feel like if you start on the other side, at the worst case. Okay, the best case is they sit on a back point, maybe shoot some people, and the rest of your models can go do your thing. The worst case is they die to somebody, and you just respawn on the other side by Red Skull. And then the other worst case is it's very unlikely because if they're sitting over there doing nothing, you're probably very happy. If you really need them to the other side of the board, like there's probably somebody of the enemy standing there, and you can just do your like one action to shoot somebody and kill yourself and respawn on the other side the next turn. So they have ways to like get back to you if you need to. I mean, a walk plus a range 4 shot is a lot of range. And so as long as you keep that option in mind, knowing you're not going to get to score with them that turn, you can set up some kind of cool things for later on. And so I think there is value in keeping them on the other side. It just felt in the one game I played like the way that people rotated, the grunts and Red Skull were on one side with Blade, and then Werewolf and Mummy were on the other side, and I was in the lead, but I had to like bring everybody over, and I'm like, I wish I had the grunts to like stand over there and do nothing, the whole game, because I would have got like 2 more points and been more ahead rather than committing everybody to moving, sweeping the other side. That being said, that kind of combo of, okay, Werewolf by Night being, I probably shouldn't have picked up with Werewolf by Night. I should have picked up with the Mummy, and then he could have sat on one side. All these things add up. But the point being is, learning where to put the grunts is important. Also knowing that, like, short move, medium base barely gets to the midline, so you don't have a lot of wiggle room left and right. Like, you got to make sure you can get to where you want to go. There's a couple measurements with that, like distance, I need to figure out. That being said, I'm not a huge fan of intrusions. There are some cool things you can do on it with Red Skull and stuff, but I don't know if they're worth it. So it kind of says what comes into play. Well, I've already said I don't really love 17. Of course, you have the team of Blade, Immortal Hulk, Thor 2 if you want, and that's fine. I mean, but that's not on these like wide shapes like Extremis, Infinity Formula. That's not where you want them. Sure, if somebody puts you on Alien Ship, I mean, you can just run the 17 with like Mummy and Lockjaw, or Iron Fist and Mummy, whatever 17 you want to run. This could be Mummy and Fist or something. Is Thor probably better than Lockjaw and Mummy together? Probably, I guess, maybe. You can run, what's his name? The gem guy. Namor, Time Gem, Clocks. I mean, maybe that's better in some cases. I mean, if you get hit, it depends on the secure. But, like, you're probably being put on somebody's, like, meteors. Like, that's kind of like the argument, too, right? Like, that's probably not the best team if you're on anything, like, wide-ish. So, like, you're Infinity. Or if you're on Cubes and Spiders, you might be okay. But you're probably better off doing the Lockjaw Mummy thing anyway. And so, if the only way you're going to play on it is, it's either Alien Ship on yours, or that's it, right? Because if it's Meteors and you don't have it, you're going to be on your secure, your extracts, and you can pick 19 or whatever you have. So maybe it's just like something Alien Ship. But if you're on your secures, you can kind of look and say, oh, I'm only going to play on Demons, Infinity, something else, and I'm okay being 17 and not having the Thor pivot there. So that's it's something to consider as well. I don't think Meteors is the answer. It's one to try, though. I mean, I don't know, because I can't run the damn Red Skull 2 version. I don't want to be stuck on 17. But I also want to have answers for 17. And so maybe, I mean, this is kind of like this is where it gets interesting, because I'm claiming I don't like this 117, and so I don't want to be stuck on 17, but I'm also claiming, hey, this other version of the list might work at 17, and if it does, then you can kind of go back and say, oh, I can have him in my roster. The other, commentary might be, okay, is there a 17 that's like Blade, Voodoo, 333, right? And so in this case, I could run Mummy, Lockjaw, Fist, and then that's where I'm trying to get into the world of like, ooh, I don't know if that feels as good as I want it to feel on most of these setups. Like, that one kind of just feels a little wrong. But that's the question, right? Is Frank and Red Skull 2 better or worse than Mummy? That feels bad. Like, sure, if it was like, I mean, Mummy, Voodoo, Blade, you're never going to go wrong with. And I like Fist for some of the setups. And he's probably okay in that one. But that's a case where Lockjaw doesn't feel as good. Like, I don't want Lockjaw there. But he can safe grab and teleport somebody. Like, maybe it is a good enough, like, scenario type team. You have some safe grabs options and mid safe grabs. You have a steal. You have teleports later. You have 5 bodies that can move around. Like, I guess it depends on what you're against. Like, if you feel like you're going to be against something that you need to be really wide against and rotate more, maybe you're just fine there. I don't know. Anyway, back to the point I was making is 17's it. I think Infinity Formula stays. I think we're very good on it. I think we can deal with 17 there. Maybe even the list I just commented on with Blade, Voodoo, Fist, Mummy, Lockjaw's okay, but I'd probably just stick to one of the other ones, maybe with the Frank. And then, okay, so now we're deciding what else would we take, right? So let's just say we keep Demons for now because we really like 19. We have some D-shaped fighters there. Extremis, I liked Extremis. I think Red Skull's good on Extremis. I think, because the grunts can heal people, he can heal himself. He basically gets like a free power because he can always cut himself and heal on the Extremis. And so he gets a net 1 power if he really wants for free. And just being healed is nice, period. Grunts counting for stuff, him just going up and shooting people. Again, it kind of comes into that 17-point threshold where, okay, if you have Voodoo Frank, maybe it feels better, but I don't want to play the Mummy other version, and so maybe it's not as good. Maybe you don't want to take it because of that. But Cosmic Invasion becomes interesting. I actually Now you don't get the healing that you do, but you also don't have to worry about Sonaro team's healing because you do damage. And then you kind of say to yourself, like, hey, I feel like I can hang with this roster on Cosmic Invasion. Like, nobody's going to be super sad about power. The push is a little annoying, but it's annoying for the enemy too. Like, you have bump and stuff, and 2 power with bump. Like, Voodoo would love to, like, have extra power, of course. Like, it's situational, but the push is for everybody, like, right? The push is could be annoying for anybody. It could be pushed into somebody and then get friggin' smacked by siege. Having siege power or possession power. That's an interesting one too. And against some of these teams that are, I guess there's some fighty teams out there where you could make a comment of like, okay, I'm running a little bit, I can handle your fighty secures if you want to run Demons, Gamma, whatever, because I'm going to be on my threat values. But if I'm playing it, then we're going to be playing on like Cosmic Invasion, Infinity, and you're going to deal with my smaller teams. If you get, but a lot of the big teams run like Virus and stuff too, so you might even just be on 19 points anyway. Especially if you pick a point value they don't want. So I don't know. I feel like Cosmic Invasion could work. I also feel like Fisk might work. I took Fisk. I ran it once. I've played 2 games on Fisk so far, 16 and a 19, and I feel like I just absolutely like shit on my opponent with it. Like it felt great. You know what also feels kind of cool? The team with Blade, Mummy, and Red Skull 2 with Cosmic Invigoration or Cosmic Obliterate, whatever the one that gives the conditions, is that like only Werewolf by Night could be staggered. Like the fact that Mummy and Blade are immune to stagger, and Red Skull 2 like has a card that can get rid of it is actually really freaking annoying. Because if you like Namor becomes a little like he doesn't want to charge Blade, he's only like 20% chance to kill Blade with 2 attacks with his like reroll ability, and you can't stagger him. So you kind of get into this weird thing of like I left my Blade next to a Namor once because it's whatever. Like this is kind of a tactical thing that you could get into, but like I think there's times where you should just walk people next to Namor because he's so fast. If he can charge you, then there's not a ton of reason like you can't just start next to him, because at least it gives you the potential to just like start your turn and attack him, right? Again, I think that's a tactical conversation for another thing, but the point being is that Blade is not actually that easy to kill with Namor straight up, and having because he can heal himself too, and then if you give him a bunch of power and he's on like 1 health, he just freaking like hits you and then spenders you, and I think he has a better chance. I think Blade might have a better chance to 2-tap. Let's just do this math real quick. Let's just go. Let's just MCP dice. We're here. So this is a good website if you want to do math. So Namor attacking. Let's just do basic Namor versus Blade, right? 1 reroll. God damn it. 1 reroll. And he has 4 dice. And we'll say on the first one, he doesn't get his rerolls. Add series. And then on the second one, he gets his rerolls. Because you could almost do, if he has 2 power, he can do it both times. Right? So you're talking 15% chance to kill him in 1 go. This is like perfect, like turn 1 bullcrap. And then Blade attacking back. 3, 1. Wild Pierce. Right? We're going to compare. And then we're going to get 7, 7, because it's auto bleed. And, oh, I did the math wrong. Shit. I should have did reroll skulls. Oh my god. Sorry, people. I'm already committed to this. I always mess up when I do this, too. But I can do this. I can do this. 20% chance, sorry, to kill Blade on the first kill Blade. Compare. 7. End of series. So I think you're comparing the chance. So like, if you just this math, this is the chance that Blade dies, and this is the chance that Namor dies, assuming you get power to Spender him, right? So this is like assuming Namor attacks you and like gets fucked up, right? Like, if he doesn't hit this 20%er, and this is without this, you have bats, you could have rerolls on both attacks. Like, this might be even less with your cards. And then if you have a bunch of power, like, you could just smack him back. And you have siege, like, you might just kill him before he goes, right? This is kind of like that interesting thing I was talking about. Anyway, I don't know where we were going with this. I think the point being is Blade does a lot of damage. I don't actually know what I was talking about there. It was just immune to people. But I guess Fisk was making me think of this because, like, Blade is immune. Blade and Mummy don't care about the stun because you can get rid of it. Of course, it matters if they get hit before they can get rid of it. Immortal Hulk's immune to it. Like, this team right here with the Red Skull 2 is really nice against the stun. Red Skull 2 getting stun is not the end of the world because he only has a gainer anyway. Of course, he can't do his... he didn't cut himself for 2 power, so it gets a little weird there. But it's not... But his grunts being able to stand on one of them and not give a shit about it is also good. So I think we're good on Fisk. I think the problem becomes with the point values in between. And so... And I guess maybe, you know, that's where you go down and say, okay, if we get stuck on... You know, I did this before, but let's just do it real quick. Okay, if you get stuck on 15 Fisk, it means you're playing Research, or it means you probably should have picked your extracts, and Research is not popular anymore. So, like, forget it, right? Okay, you can take some 4th threat. Maybe you put in Bill or something like I did. Okay, 16. Great. This team seems really good on it. We just talked about it. Great. 17, this is where maybe you take Thor. Thor doesn't like the stun, but you have so much damage on your team that it might not even be a matter of caring about that. You might just kill people with your power. 18, you could take Immortal Hulk, Mummy. Who do you have points for? 4th threat? This is one where, like, having a good 4th threat on Fisk would be good because at 15 and 18, like, you like it. This becomes good here, and then at 20, you just upgrade. I mean, this is where, like, Frank would be interesting too, because if Frank is good on it, he could be like your 4th threat here, your 4th threat here, your 4th threat here, your 4th threat at 17. Like, Frank might actually be useful. It could be Voodoo is probably okay. I'm not convinced of Fisk, but, like, that's one where, like, I think maybe you could make it work. It's worth testing. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap this video up with I won the tournament. I have things to think about. I want to drop Intrusions. I want to see if, like, Cosmic Invasion or Fisk is the answer. Madman's also a potential one I want to test because I think we have a solid 18 options, and the B shape seems to be doing well for us. Paranoia is always an option too because I'm starting to really like that threat value. And I hate my 17. I want to potentially try Frank in that area. That's the TLDR. But if you got this far, you've already listened. So thanks for listening.